And meanwhile, on the other side, under Chris Hamblin's Harvard Crimson, a little bit of a different look. They've got Anna Rayhill up front, and in the back, Rhiannon Stewart. And meanwhile, of course, Rose. Can't forget about Josephine Hasbo in the midfield.
Exactly. We talked about Jade Rose's international experience. Josephine Hasbo has that experience as well, playing in the 2023 World Cup. Expect her to build on her All-American campaign from last year.
She starred for Team Denmark and a world-class player. She is a co-captain this year, along with Rose and also another player who's not in the starting lineup tonight, but Sydney Farnham, as Harvard has three captains. Thundering Herd are led on the field by Kaisa Ekstrom, who's a captain. She is there alongside Louisa Travasis and an injured player, Alyssa Harden, as they also have three captains. We are off and underway. Marshall in the striped green and white uniforms. Harvard in the solid crimsons here tonight. And a beautiful atmosphere here at Jordan Field's second ever game for Marshall against an Ivy League foe. The first was just Friday when they took on Dartmouth in a 1-0 defeat in Hanover.
Great for Marshall to be getting these games, different opponents. You never know who you're going to get when you go into the NCAA tournament potentially. And with a new coach as well, they want to see every type of team they can have. So this experience on the East Coast up here in the Northeast is fantastic for them.
Yeah, it's really interesting, the scheduling of this matchup. Harvard looking for a team that would be willing to come to Boston. Marshall looking for early season opponents as well, and able to tag team it with the game against Dartmouth. And it was a really competitive game that Marshall had against the Thundering Herd, or excuse me, Marshall had against the Big Green. A lot of green in that matchup, by the way. It was a game in which, unfortunately for Marshall, they gave up a goal just a minute 39 into the match to Daisy Granholm, and that goal was the difference in a 1-0 defeat, but they felt like they were deserving of at least a tie in that game based on our conversation with Rafa Samoas.
Yeah, exactly. Marshall, 19 new players. They're a team still finding themselves. So obviously Harvard has watched their past two games, but they still don't know what this Marshall team really has up for store.
Yeah, they were going to learn a lot more based on going against an Ivy League opponent that, of course, Harvard knows so well. So the Harvard coaches were very keen on scouting that. And the other side, for Rafa Samoas, as he tries to get to know this Harvard squad, no tape, obviously, this being game number one. And, you know, it's a very different squad than what Harvard trotted out there the last time they were on the pitch in the NCAA tournament against Michigan State. Since then, Harvard has lost about half of its minutes and half of its offensive production, either to graduation or injury. So there's a lot of players who are going to be in different roles this season for the Crimson versus where they were in the past as another top 25 squad.
And that's what these early games are all for. Before conference starts, you want to figure out who your key players are, who's going to grow into this season, who might surprise you and really make your names for themselves in this season. So this is the first game for Harvard. They need to feel things out and see how they go.
August Hunter pushes one up, but too far out of the run of Anya Vandeninde. And it'll be played by the keeper, Alexis Wagmuth, a junior from Lincolnton, North Carolina. Key to the game here for Marshall, we talked about her in the open, but Bailey Fisher is huge when it comes to this team's offensive potential.
Exactly. Bailey Fisher is such a dynamic player for the Marshall Thundering Herd. Last season, they scored 19 goals, 7 of them from Fisher. The only returner with the goal is Alyssa Harden, who we talked about is out. So they need Fisher to get going on the season. She's assisted their only goal, but last game had 6 shots to 3 on target. So expect her to get her shot off and hopefully potentially score her first goal of the season.
Get a whistle going against Jade Rose and Harvard. So it'll be a free kick coming from Marshall just past midfield. And talk about keys to the game on the other side for Harvard. The Crimson certainly, they've got, a couple of notes that you wanted to key in on as far as when they have the ball.
Yes, for Harvard, this is their first game of the season. Ivy League teams typically come into preseason about a week later than all their conferences. So this is Marshall's third game, but Harvard's first. So this means that Harvard must control the pace of the game. They have to play the possession style of play they want to play and mitigate the factors such as fitness that might be against them.
Hasbo was the first to touch it after Leah Mish took the free kick. Hasbo, a player that Chris Hamblin told us, as far as developing her, they want to see her take on an even greater role offensively. She's a midfielder and really a dynamic defensive player, but we saw at the end of last season a hat trick in the Ivy League tournament, offensive player of the week and an all-Ivy player. She certainly who has potential offensively, and they want to try and tap into that as much as possible, knowing that goals might not be as easy to come by this season as they were last year.
And you see the way she's lined up in that midfield position. She likes to attack. She likes to find the spaces. And those players are so hard to mark. So expect Josephine Hasbro to get on the ball. And as soon as she gets her rhythm in this game, expect that to mean Harvard is going to create more chances.
Marshall playing in its own end has to go back to Wagmuth, who used her feet to get it to the opposite side. And now it is back to the 5'7" keeper. Only played in 9 games last year because of injury. She missed the last half of the season, but in those 9 games, she had 5 clean sheets and is already, after 2 years and not even 2 full years, she's 5th in program history in shutouts.
And we talked to Coach Simos early this week, and he was full of praise for her. He said she has a professional future after this season, and he's excited for her to hopefully break records here at Marshall.
Certainly will have the opportunity to do so over the next couple of seasons, especially with how they expect to play in the first year under Rafa Samoas, who made the transition from being an assistant coach on the Marshall men's team to becoming the head coach this season of the women's team. Ball played up towards Sarah Lloyd, and now it's Anna Rahill. She gets it off to Lloyd. At the top of the box, tried to play it, and it comes back onto the boot of Irina Hettensdottir Gonzalez and just overcooks it. First scoring chance here for Harvard.
Good spell of play for Harvard. First time we've really seen them get into the attack and get a shot off. First shot's blocked, but they stay with the ball, and you love to see that. It's early on in this season. They need to get their attacking players going and expect more shots like that coming on.
That's Hettensdottir Gonzalez, a sophomore from Iceland, who's one of 4 Icelandic players on the Crimson, although a couple of players banged up, and that's something that Chris Hamblin told us, that it was tough starting training. They don't have as big of a roster in terms of numbers as they've had in seasons past, and they've got a couple of injuries that they're dealing with. So especially early in training, it was difficult to really figure out what they had. It was only last Thursday that they got all the pieces back that they were expecting to start the season with.
Yes, the college soccer season is so short, so unforgiving. So when you have a player that has that nagging injury, that maybe has a longer term injury, it's so hard to get them even for a small portion of the season. So that's something Chris Hamblin and all coaches have to deal with. I'm excited to see who can maybe step up for Harvard.
Opening 7.5 minutes. Harvard, high expectations despite a lot of new faces. Picked to finish atop the Ivy League preseason poll. Crimson last year were picked to finish 2nd in the league, and they ended up finishing 2nd in the regular season, but won the Ivy League tournament. Yes. So that top spot as far as the regular season, it's less impactful than it was before the addition of the 4-team tournament last year.
And the Ivy League tournament is such an exciting addition. There's so few conferences that don't have a conference tournament. The Ivy League was one of them. So seeing that addition, seeing the excitement it adds is incredible.
Rose crosses this one on the far side. Header, it's knocked up in the air by a Marshall player and gathered by Wagmuth. Crimson starting to buzz, and it was set up by Rose with her service from the corner.
And that exactly there is what Jade Rose brings to the game. She's playing at that right back position, but expect her to be flying up and down the wing. You see, once she starts going, the center backs know they need a player the ball and expect that to happen a couple more times this game.
So a couple of shots here for Harvard, still looking for Marshall's first attempt on Rhiannon Stewart, who's making just her 2nd career start in goal. For Marshall, it's a tale of a bit unknown. You see picked to finish 13th out of 14 teams in the Sun Belt Conference, but they did pick up a first place vote despite being 2nd to last overall. So somebody in the Sun Belt has really high expectations for Rafa Samoas to do what his mentor, Chris Grassi, has done with the Marshall men's program.
Exactly, and you talked about the Marshall men's program, what a force they've built over there. Won a national championship in 2021, and also last season were the #1 overall seed heading to the NCAA tournament. Coach Rafa Simos comes over, and he wants to build the same thing. And we talked to him. He said that they're bringing a lot of international players, especially coming in as a head coach later on. It's hard to recruit American players. So maybe someone who gave the first place vote knows some of these players with international pedigree and expects them to be big players from Marshall.
Samoas played for Chris Grassi at The University of Charleston won a Division II national championship there, and he says there is great synergy between the men's and women's programs. He always felt like Marshall, the women's soccer program, was a sleeping giant, and right now they're trying to wake that giant up. Says, cautions, it's only year one. Coach Grassie's in year 7 or 8, as a push down. Looked like Madison Towns got knocked down. And let's take another look as to where this ball will be positioned.
Yeah, late call there from the ref. At first glance, looked like a shoulder, but maybe there was more to it. You see here. I'm not sure if that was a foul, but ref has called it, and this is a dangerous set piece for Marshall. And we talked earlier in the game, Bailey Fisher, she's the target at number 7. Expect her to be trying to get on the ball.
Try and make out who's taking the free kick. It is outside the area here, right between the edge of the penalty box and out of bounds. It'll be a little tough to tell with all the lines, but everything that is green is in on the soccer field. This is punched out by Stewart and then jockeyed in front of the net. Rose, it comes right back toward Hasbo, and now Harvard with Rose will clear it from harm's way, but a dangerous opportunity, and Marshall nearly struck first. Now Harvard on the counter. Van den Einde goes over to Nicola Golan, who can't catch up with it. So if you're looking at the lines on the pitch here, the red lines are the soccer-specific lines. So those spray-painted red lines designate where the penalty box and the keeper's box are. And the other white and yellow lines, those are there for men's and women's lacrosse. So just know that if it's in green, it's in play. If it's in black, it's into touch. So Marshall makes its presence known here 12 minutes in. Second ever game against an Ivy League opponent for the Thundering Herd. And for Harvard, first ever game against a team out of the state of West Virginia. First game ever against a team that is in the Sun Belt Conference. They did play James Madison about 30 some odd years ago, but James Madison at the time was in the CAA. They only joined the Sun Belt in the last couple of years.
And Alex, I do see some green in the stands. Looks like we possibly have some visiting fans all the way from West Virginia. So hopefully that away support can help them this time.
Asbo ducks underneath the defender, and we'll try and play it from the back here. This is August Hunter playing for the first time in her Harvard career without her sister Smith Hunter. Graduated after last season, formed a great duo. Smith and August, the Seattle, Washington natives. She settled more into her natural role as a defender last year after starting off her college career playing more in the midfield. Ball gets on the boot of Amy Koenig, a Berlin, Germany native. A lot of international students on both of these squads. Yeah, we're talking about Marshall and where they were picked in the Sun Belt Conference. So much unknown because they have 19 new players from last year. Just an absurd number of players who are new to the program. And, of course, a new head coach. I think it's a blindfolded dart throw as much as anything to figure out how Marshall's going to be this year. And Rafa Samoa says, we want to be pushed by a team like Harvard in this type of game. So we know where we stand and what we need to improve on when we get to Sun Belt play.
And it's all about confidence when it comes to college soccer. Yes, you can win games off your RPI, but teams look to get going once it gets to conference season. So for a team like Marshall with 19 new players that really need to find themselves, need to find their style of play, who they are, playing a team like Harvard that is a perennial team in the NCAA tournament is going to be massive for them as they make their way towards the Sun Belt tournament.
That was a good run by Fernanda Dantas to work it into the Harvard third, but equally good job of repelling it by the Crimson. It'll be a Harvard throw over on the far side. So about 15 minutes into the first game of the season, in your experience, are the nerves gone at this point? Have you played enough to maybe shake off some of that nervous energy? And at what point do you feel like the game begins to declare itself?
Honestly, I think it's about now. first 10, 15 minutes, that's when you're still feeling things out, especially for Harvard in their first game. You have some new players in some new positions. Everything is so new to you. But then once you really settle into the game, you can play the style of play that the coaches instilled in you. So expect this game to get going once we start right now.
A bit of a push administered by the first year from Sydney, Australia, Aaron Gordon, as the ball went into touch. See if this is a throw or a free kick. Looks like it'll be a kick here for Marshall. Harvard with the first two shots, Marshall with the most recent. And a free kick from a similar spot to the one that generated the first shot opportunity for the Thundering Herd. A little chip. A race, and this is Amelia Compston. Came over from a Division II program in West Virginia, West Liberty, and Hasbo gets taken out for a foul. Did well to avoid the bulk of the contact there, but Harvard a good adjustment after Marshall had a dangerous chance on their first free kick.
Great defensive work from Hasbo, and something I've realized in both this set piece opportunity and the previous one for Harvard, Hasbo and Rose so composed in the defensive third. You usually see a lot of players just immediately clear the ball in that position, but you have two experienced international players that want to play out of the back, even if they have a Marshall player pressing them.
Van den Einde gets dispossessed. Fisher was the one to do it. Now into the box, it's rolled and picked up by Stewart. Shot coming from Bailey Fisher. Coming into the day, she had 7 shots over her first 2 games, looking for her first goal of the season, but here's her first attempt tonight.
Bailey Fisher has a way of getting open. Like we said, we saw her against Dartmouth, 6 shots, 3 on target. She knows how to find those spaces. She knows how to get shots on goal. She'll want to do better there, but that's probably just a snippet of what we'll see from her tonight.
She grew up around the school, and Rafa Samoa says she's basically a celebrity when it comes to West Virginia women's soccer players. As this will be played out for a goal kick. It was last touched by Harvard, and on the race, Sarah Lloyd, Denver, Colorado native, was trying to win the corner, but it was really impressive hearing him talk about Bailey Fisher and all of the children around the program that they want to be the next Bailey Fisher. She set a state record scoring 66 goals her last year of high school. And the Hurricane West Virginia native really is, a player who over this year and next year, she's going to continue to cement her legend seemingly if she continues the production she's had.
As a little kid going to college soccer games, it's always great when you see a player that you can see yourself in. I know for myself, I grew up in Storrs, Connecticut, going to UConn soccer games, so I'd always look up especially to the players from Connecticut. So I'm sure all the kids in West Virginia, especially when you see a team with so many international players, seeing a player from where you are playing on a team like this must be a special thing.
Mentioned first ever meeting between Harvard and Marshall. Marshall lost 1-0 to Dartmouth on Friday. Harvard lost to James Madison way back in the 1991 ECAC semifinals when the Dukes were members of the CAA, but now members of the Sun Belt. Ray Hill gets turned around. Comes right back to Hethensdottir Gonzalez as she tries to play it through. Golan was streaking on net. And Marshall, well disciplined, preventing Harvard from getting a shot close to goal. Hethensdottir Gonzalez plays it low and scooped up by Wagmuth.
You can go with her there, right? Well done.
Wagmuth has allowed a goal in each of the first 2 games. It was a 1-1 draw against Moorhead State in the first game of the season. And then that goal 99 seconds into game number 2. Rafa Samoa said he was really impressed because you know how first year, new coach, all these new players, the program, he was impressed as Harvard really challenging Wagmuth. Van den Einde proving to be a fly in the ointment here. And now Rose to Van den Einde. Toward Lloyd. Defender falls. Top of the box. Played off another defender. And over just past Golan, has to chase it down. Harvard building here.
We're finally starting to see Harvard impose themselves, get the combinations I'm sure Coach Chris Hamden wants them to get. And like we said, this is their first game of the season. These players are still getting to know what the team's going to look like this year. So they're only going to get more of a build-up as this game goes.
Lloyd taken down without the whistle. And now Rose set up a dangerous one earlier. Instead, lets that go out, and Harvard will have its first corner kick of the match. Just over 20 minutes in, 0-0 here in Jordan Field. Irina Heffensdotter Gonzalez will trot over to take the kick. These are the things you can only practice to a point in training. There's nothing like a live game when it comes to set pieces and attacking set pieces here. So Harvard's first chance on the young season. Heffensdotter Gonzalez, it's headed out of there. Well defended by the Thundering Herd.
And we saw a special play there from Harvard. They had 3 players lined up on the side of the 18-yard box. The ball in was a good one, but just couldn't find the head of any players.
Headed out for another Harvard corner.
And Harvard imposing themselves once again. This is the spell of possession Chris Hamblin would have wanted his team to have. They're putting dangerous cross into the box. And when a cross like that comes in, anything can happen.
Once again, Heffensdotter Gonzalez. For Rose, right into Wogmuth and then punched over. Lloyd was there. And a near magic moment for Harvard, a sigh of relief
And I'm
for the
sure
Herd.
Lloyd's going to see this back and want to do better. Another great ball into the box. And it's the target, Jade Rose. She gets her head on it, and it falls to Lloyd, and she just can't quite get a good foot on it, and it goes over the net. But good spell possession from Harvard. They're imposing themselves in this game and are showing why they were such a dangerous team last year.
You see the versatility of Rose, who is a player capable of marking some of the best in the world defensively, and we've already seen in a couple of instances in different ways where she can be a factor when it comes to offensive production. Top of the box, there goes Van den Einde, and it's just wide. Harvard buzzing around net.
In Harvard, the past couple minutes, you've seen this press from them. It has been stifling for the Marshall defense. And you see this off the goal kick here. Marshall tries to play it out, but they just can't find their way. And the shot just over the net. But once again, Harvard is really pressing Marshall, and we'll see how Coach Simos adjusts this.
Anya Van den Einde, sophomore from San Diego, searching for her first career goal. She started 3 of the 13 games she played in last year. It was the high school San Diego Player of the Year. Huge credentials from Southern California. Came in, got the experience, and without some pieces back here for the Crimson, she could be a real breakout candidate. Here's Lloyd. Works around the defender. Lloyd falling down, stumbles, and sends it wide. Sarah Lloyd certainly making herself a factor. She's a newbie, but how about the returners? Jade Rose, Josephine Hasbo, they are the headliners when it comes to the Crimson, without a doubt, with their international experience. Hasbo last year, first team all-conference, most outstanding player of the Ivy League tournament, had a hat trick in the title game. She scored 10 times with 6 helpers, and then Jade Rose, for the second straight year, the Ivy League Defensive Player of the Year.
So much experience from those two, and it's incredible when you have 2 All-Americans, one in the defense, one in the attack. A nice spread out for Coach Chris Hamblin's side.
Well, that was quite an effort by Wogmuth to save the corner. It'll be a throw instead. There were no all-conference players for Marshall last year, but you figure if Wogmuth had been able to play a full season, A, Marshall has a much better record, and B, she might find herself on one of those all-Sun Belt teams with her talent. Lloyd looking for help. Crimson played in off the boot of Aaron Gordon. That's headed up in the direction of Rose, and the flag was up for an offside against Rose and the Crimson, and now Jade Rose a little slow to get herself up, but appears to be okay.
Yeah, ball comes in, and 50-50 here between Rose and the goalkeeper, and it's one of those ones that you have to go for because just a touch and it goes in the goal. nice to see her up and back on her feet.
Took an extra beat. It was an emotional roller coaster for Jade Rose and Team Canada at the Olympics. All the storylines involving the head coach being sent home and the drones. And no doubt that had an effect because of all the travel, all that emotional expenditure. Chris Hamblin said, you know, why don't you take an extra couple of weeks before you come back to campus and make sure that you've refilled your bucket, so to speak, before you start draining it for Harvard Crimson soccer.
And we see a lot of players in the college game play in different leagues over the summer, USL League 2, for example, and seeing Rose play at the Olympics over the summer for her. Different experience from probably some other players that have ever played college soccer before, but she's bringing her experience here, and we see it on the ball right now.
And she'll win a corner. See two Marshall players dedicated to making sure Rose does not get a clean clearance. And Irina Heffensdotter Gonzalez will come back out, the former member of the Iceland U19 youth national team, and one of 4 Iceland natives on the Crimson. She'll take the kick, her third. And just rolls it in the direction of Van den Einde. Now Heffensdotter Gonzalez headed out. And Marshall will look to get it out of here. They have been living in their end far too much for their own liking over the last 10 minutes, but Harvard once again sticky with the possession. Hunter. Reverse back to Koenig, and now Gordon.
You can stay, Jay. You can stay, Jay.
Golan.
You can go now.
Little fancy footwork. Leading into the corner, and that is sent into the side of the net by August Hunter.
And that was Hunter all the way up on the left side, the center back getting up. You love to see that. You love to see your defenders getting ahead, and a center back overlapping isn't something you always see, but that is a sign of Harvard getting comfortable to the game, and their key players finally starting to heat up as the season goes on.
It was interesting talking with Chris Hamblin about how different things are. You know, they don't have the services of some really key players. You talk about August's sister, Smith, but Ava Lung, Hannah Bebar, the All-American, Gabby Del Pico, Ainsley Amadian, Megan Mackey. And so you have to figure out new ways to do it in different combinations. And, you know, maybe you don't rely on getting that magic moment the way you did in the past, and you have to be a little bit more intentional with how you build up. But it also presents opportunities. Here's Lloyd dribbling through the defense. On to Hasbo! She finds the pot of gold, and Harvard leads 1-0.
Josephine Hasbo picking up where she left off last season. But I want to highlight Sarah Lloyd here. Once again, this is a freshman in her first college soccer game. She has been so dynamic. We saw her miss that chance earlier on, but she kept her head up, has been going at the Marshall defenders all game, and creates that chance for Hasbo.
Josephine Hasbo picks up right where she left off last year. She had 10 goals a season ago, and she opens her account in 2024.
And this is exactly what Harvard would have wanted. A goal about halfway through the half. You get that confidence. They're the type of team that is all about momentum. In your first game, you want your players to have confidence, and there's no better confidence giver than it.
Sarah Lloyd gets the assist for her first collegiate point. And, you know, you never can fully see a goal coming, but you could tell the way that Harvard had been attacking really for about the last 15 minutes that they were primed, and it was all about survival mode for Marshall, and now they're going to need to find a little bit more on their offensive side to break even.
And these next 5 minutes here are going to be so crucial. After a goal, there can be so many emotions from both teams. For Marshall, they need to make sure that they don't back off, that they keep their foot on the gas. And the same for Harvard as well. Once one comes, sometimes the door can open and a lot more. So we'll see how these next 5 minutes play out.
See how it changes tactics for both of these squads. Marshall knew that it was going to be pushed here tonight. Lloyd just took a push there, but managed to keep her feet. Same couldn't be said for Rahill, who took a tumble. As our referee, Sam McCollid, has let them play for the most part. They have not been too liberal with the whistles. He's assisted tonight by Jonathan Luke and Nicola Vesia. Anna Rahill providing a one-woman bit of pressure here as Marshall looks for answers here. These squads have similar ways that they want to play. They want to be possession-based. And it is interesting when you see the way Harvard is really well-oiled machine under Chris Hamblin now in his 9th season leading the program. And I'm sure for Rafa Samoas, he's seeing, and he's probably going to be telling his team, this is the type of game that we want to be able to play and we feel like we can get to once we teach everybody how we want to play and we get the right players into the program.
And after that goal, we are seeing Marshall try and get possession of the ball. They're not panicking. They're trying to play that possession style, trying to have some composure, and we're seeing it. And as we said, this is a new coach in his first season. So adding those mentality aspects of the game to a team is never easy. But early on, it looks like Marshall has the tools to do that.
And just like everybody else, this time of year, you're figuring out what your combinations are. Coming into the day, Marshall had started over its first 2 games 15 different players, and Rafa Samoa says, we've got 20 players who could probably start. So he feels like the depth is there, but again, it's figuring out which pieces work and who's going to be more consistently dangerous as Harvard goes offside with Anna Rahill.
And that's something you always get early in college soccer season. You have players that sometimes don't play the first couple of games, come out and become all conference players. The early matches before conference starts is about these coaches figuring out what players are going to be on the field in that starting 11 when conference tournament starts and when those losses matter even more.
A few moments ago, Harvard had its first substitution. Jasmine Leshnik, a sophomore from San Francisco, came into the game. And Anya Van Den Einde, San Diego native, checked out. So NorCal in, SoCal out.
Jasmine Leshnik, I remember seeing her incredible bicycle kick last season against Dartmouth. Sports Center, top #1 play. Excited to see what she can do coming into this match.
Had a couple of game-winning goals. That Dartmouth one, of course, was a game winner. Also had a game winner against Yale. And 4 goals in total as Harvard gets set to bring Audrey Francois into the game.
Audrey Francois, replacing number 19.
And she will relieve Anna Rahill. So Francois, junior from Laval, Quebec. She was named to the Canada U20 roster for international matches earlier this season, coming off a 3-goal campaign. Played in 19 games with 4 starts. Harvard looks to build. Lloyd was calling for it just off screen, but nobody around her and with too much distance for a ball to get in her direction.
And you see Rose calling for the ball. She is an acre of space here on the right side. And this is exactly what Harvard wants. They want to push Lloyd into the middle so that way the right back can come and overlap and the center back can find her on that ball. We've seen it a couple times already, and that is certainly a game plan that Coach Chris Hamblin has written up.
What did you make of the formation that Harvard came out with, the 4-1-4-1, as far as what they're trying to figure out in terms of offensive pieces?
For Harvard, with the 4-1-4-1, they have the one player in the middle, the number 6, this defensive midfielder. That might be the most key player on the field in this formation, the person holding it down and breaking up those attacks as they come. And that gives room for your attacking players to get forward and your outside back in Jade Rose as well.
So Hasbo taking a little extra punishment there. She's only 5 feet 2 inches tall, but she really has a great center of gravity, excellent balance. It's what makes her so dangerous, both as an offensive player and defending. She always seems to keep her feet. Teams try and knock her off them. Sends in the service. Headed up by Rose and bounced just to the left of the goal.
Jade Rose, the target once again, always seems to gravitate towards the ball in these set pieces. And the key for Harvard is when that ball comes in, they need a player running into the back across the goal because it's hard to generate a header shot from that far away. So Rose can head that down and someone runs in, there'd be an easy tap in there.
Rose is 5'10", but she plays taller than that. Really dangerous vertical player is there goes Hunter on the cross, and it's just in front of Francois.
And once again, I love the offensive edge that Hunter has to her game as a center back. If she sees space, she will go. And it's so impressive for a defender to be not just astute defensively, but to be a threat offensively as well.
little surprising that that jersey tug didn't warrant a little bit more attention from the referee. Tough to miss that one, but didn't slow her down.
And I think seeing those attacks from Hunter, seeing her get up the field, that just shows you how comfortable, once again, Harvard is getting into this game. It is their first game of the season. You have some nerves, have some jitters, but with 11 minutes left in this half, they seem to be very comfortable, and the players seem to be getting back to where they were, obviously, last season.
Harvard is out shooting Marshall 8-2. Shots on goal are 3-0 Crimson. And, of course, the shot that found the back of the net, the goal by Josephine Hasbo in the 28th minute, accounting for all the scoring to this point. First game of the season for Harvard. It's game number 3 for Marshall out of the Sun Belt Conference. Golan takes it along the touch line and then sends it into space in the corner. Across her, looking for Leshnik, and it's just wide. Hasbo set her up. Dangerous touch for Jasmine Leshnik.
And Hasbo has freedom to roam in this midfield. We see her pop out in the left side. Great service. And Leshnik gets good contact on it, but she just can't curl her foot on it enough to get into the goal. But good chance threatening once again for Harvard.
A lot of action near Alexis Wagmuth. She has saved 2 of the 3 shots on goal. And Harvard has continued to be relentless. Chris Amblin said, with missing so many offensive pieces from last year, we're going to have to find different ways to do it in terms of personalities, but also just the style of game. In games last year, we were accustomed to winning 4-2, 4-1. Those might be 1-0 or 2-0 type games, and it's a totally different test from a mentality standpoint to play in those types of close games where one goal means all the difference than a game where you know you're probably going to be scoring multiple goals.
I think the thing for Harvard as well is you expect players to take the step up. We saw Francois and Leshnik come in. They had 3 goals and 4 goals respectively last season. So they do have players coming off the bench with multiple goals scored this season. So they'll be hoping those players can take the step up and add to their tallies from last year.
Whistle on the Crimson, and Marshall a chance to spring some sort of offense. Susie Long is getting set to come in at the next opportunity as we approach 9 minutes in the opening half here at Jordan Field this season. Mentioned it was a rare home game for Harvard. They play on the road all but 5 games over the course of the regular season. They only have 2 of their first 9 games here at home. A lot of bus trips and in some cases flights for the Crimson here in the first half of the season. Just the nature of how tough it is to schedule, especially when you don't play in a major conference. So that the Ivy League women's soccer, after getting 4 teams into the NCAA tournament last year, they would argue they're as good of a conference as any, given that half the teams made the big field.
Exactly, and especially for Harvard being at home, not having many home games, you see the support in the stands. You have the students here. You have signs for the players. It's an incredible atmosphere here in Cambridge. I'm sure the Harvard players are going to be relishing it.
The Harvard students still making their way back to campus. Classes have not started yet here. Although the crowd is growing as the night grows deeper. Marshall had a couple of dangerous opportunities off of set pieces on free kicks earlier in the first half, but there has been little to write back to Huntington, West Virginia about when it comes to offensive chances in the last 20 or so minutes.
And Marshall being very patient here with the build-up. They're not forcing it. They want Harvard to come and press them, and they're just moving it side to side, seeing where they can find those pockets.
Looking to find soft spot to exploit, or maybe somebody overplays their lane. Harvard to get a throw, and after an eternity of waiting, Susie Long will finally get a chance to come in. Sacramento, California native, a sophomore. She'll relieve Sarah Lloyd. Really strong opening half of her college career. She gets big high fives and applause from the Harvard supporters and her teammates. Assisted on the goal by Hasbo. Set us where we are right now, 1-0.
And it's never easy for a player as a freshman to come into their first game, new team, new level. With Sarah Lloyd dangerous throughout her time in the first half, we expect to see her in the second.
Long, not waiting to make an impact, wearing what's become a trademark for her, that headband. And she plays with a certain amount of ferocity. Harvard will get the throw as that's tapped out off the foot of Ebony Leckie, who has the only goal this season for Marshall. The Derry, Northern Ireland native, scored it against Moorhead State in the opener. That ball played out. It will be see who's going to end up taking this, and it was Marshall playing it through. You're at the point in the game where the margin being what it is and how much time is left, where you can afford to be methodical. But it doesn't appear that the plan to get Harvard to press a little bit over eagerly is working. Harvard has stayed pretty disciplined.
And yes, Harvard is a very experienced team. They're not going to be baited into pressing where they don't need to. When they go, they need to go with numbers, and that's exactly what they're doing and winning the ball back, as we see here.
August Hunter loses it. And here comes Leckie. Taps it to Fisher. Fisher looking for the cross, and that's guided out. Rose off of her, but it was last touched by Fisher. An expert defensive play by Jade Rose to turn a corner into a goal kick.
And that's a heavyweight battle on this side right here. Our two players to watch going at it, Fisher and Rose. Fisher just couldn't quite get the angle for the cross, and unlucky to see it come off of her for the goal kick.
But it is interesting. You brought it up before we went on the air tonight. The last time Jade Rose played in a competitive soccer game, it was in front of a packed house in Paris at the Olympics. And it's just a little bit of a different environment here, playing back on your home pitch at Jordan Field. But it doesn't look like that affects the way she plays at all. If it's a soccer pitch, she's going to give you the same type of effort.
And I'm sure for a player like Jade Rose as well, Harvard is a place that she's grown to love over these past couple of years. You know, coming back to a place with so much familiarity after such a whirlwind summer. I think as a player, you always want to play in a place that you love, a place that makes you feel at home. And I'm sure that's what Jordan Field is to Jade Rose.
And we'll get a foul coming up on Marshall. Well, take a look here. It was Hetton's daughter Gonzalez, and then the collision that happened there. I think it was Madison Towns who was caught up with it from Marshall's perspective, the junior from Virginia. Hasbo. Line drives it right onto the head of a Herd player. Golan. And that's into touch. So it's a free kick. It's not a throw here for Josephine Hasbo. Goal scorer gets another chance to set it up from the perimeter.
And once again, look at Rose on this back post, potentially to head it back across as it comes over.
A little bit more air under this one, and it overshoots Rose. Just took one step in too far, and was it saved off the line? It was. It'll be a throw coming deep in the corner. Harvard keeping that pressure on. They've made it so difficult for Marshall to escape its own end of the pitch. Under 2.5 to go in the opening half. Long and Leshnick. And then Leshnick gets taken down.
So many set-piece opportunities for Harvard here today. So dangerous on them. So many targets in the box. Marshall in the second half is going to want to stop making these fouls because the more they come, the more it's likely that Harvard will nick a goal off of one of them.
Rafa Samoa said pretty similar things to say about Alexis Wagmuth as he did Bailey Fisher. Two of them are close friends as here's Golan, sends one on net. It comes back out into the box. Long plays it up toward Leshnik. Headed by Francois. Marshall trying to clear. Leshnik heads forward. And it's played back into the midfield. Good fire drill evasion by Marshall. Long sends one harmlessly in. Nicola Golan has changed from playing the far side to the near side with the other substitutions. Pressuring and then toppling over goes Fisher.
And the thing I've been so impressed with Harvard on these set pieces is that they are dangerous on everyone. And obviously a lot of that comes down to the delivery from Josephine Hasbo. But we've also seen some go short. We've seen a lot of variations on these set piece opportunities. And that's clearly something Coach Hamblin and the squad have been doing towards preseason.
See if there's one more push here in the final minute. As the Herd take their time setting this up, trailing 1-0. Beautiful night here in Cambridge. The sun setting over the Charles River. And the Herd with their first ever trip to play the Crimson. They have been in a battle and have faced a lot of pressure here. Final 15 seconds, and this time it's going to be a Harvard throw. See if the Crimson push it with Rose. Francois tried the back kick toward Hasbo. Can she get something on net? No. But she is the reason that it's 1-0 Harvard. And after the first 45 minutes, George, so far a good start for Harvard's season.
Yeah, and it's kind of played out the way you would expect. KG first 10 to 15 minutes from Harvard, figuring out themselves, figuring out what they're going to look like this season. And then you get your returners going, you get your freshmen going, and you get the goal. So looking to the second half, Harvard's going to want to build that momentum. But for Marshall, they need to go back in the locker room and they need to figure out how to build the possession they have in the defensive third into chances created in the attacking third.
Well, after Sarah Lloyd was stymied on a shot attempt, a little bit later she helps Josephine Hasbo find the back of the net to make it 1-0 Harvard at halftime.
I'm really delighted, along with our great teaching team, to be teaching the Taylor Swift and Her World course. It's my favorite large class that I've ever taught. I would not have considered teaching it if I did not love the music of Taylor Swift and consider her a major songwriter. But I also wouldn't be doing it if it were nothing but Taylor.
She's far from the first or the only writer who has written looking back at her younger self.
It very much is an English course. We are thinking about the same kinds of things that you think about probably in any course about American literature. Taylor is just a new point of intervention.
That is a central trope of the literary movement which generates tortured poets, which we call Romanticism.
You can make connections between what Taylor is doing in, for example, Shake It Off or Ready for It, and what Alexander Pope is doing as an early 18th century poet.
We have been tackling Taylor by era and bringing in references from other authors who use the same kinds of ideas that she does.
I'm particularly looking forward to studying Wordsworth while we're doing folklore because Wordsworth was such an influence on that album.
We've got 2 lectures a week, and there are discussion sections where they're in a small room with a teaching assistant talking about what they've heard and what they've thought and just sharing their ideas.
My goal as a TF is to get students to understand that music isn't a neutral space. It's something that happens intentionally, and the way that we respond to it, the way that we listen to it, the way that it's written says so much about us as a society and about the things that we value.
It's definitely opened my eyes to how songs are constructed and formed in a way that it hadn't been before. I think I've come out of this English class with a greater knowledge of music.
Another thing about teaching this class that makes it feel really special so far is that you've got students who are already excited about the material.
My students seem really energized. They always have really great ideas.
I've been a huge Taylor Swift fan for a really, really long time. I thought it would be really, really interesting to go a little deeper and think about it a little deeper.
It's very validating as both an academic and a Swiftie to see those worlds come together in such a beautiful way.
Graham Blanks just made a move into the lead. There's about 700 meters left in the race, but there's also a big hill between him and the finish line.
And she's going to the front. You see how she opens up and extends that stride?
Top returner from last year, where he was 10th, all-time number 6 junior from Harvard.
Harvard looking like they are going to take home this championship against the defending champions.
Just in there, great reach, what a great float. It's been her trademark.
And Emily Vermeulen do something that no Harvard fencer before her has accomplished. The freshman who has a reputation for being extremely insightful, level-headed about the side of this sport.
The fans come to life as Cameron Fields streaks away for number 3.
And rounding here in first, we have the Harvard Crimson.
As we charge into the line, it is Harvard coming up for the finish.
Ramsden has broken this race open. Will anyone go with her?
Graham Blanks, there it is, the very first Ivy champ, getting the laurels here at the 23 Cross Country Championship in Virginia.
Throws up the number 1 as she goes across the finish line. NCAA champion.
Oh my goodness. And she's gone the wrong way, and it's the match.
And your 2023 NYRA Division I champions are the Harvard Crimson.
The 2024 NCAA fencing team champion, with 2 of their fencers winning individual titles.
Since the beginning, my parents, my friends, everyone. I mean, this is a win for all of us.
Like, every time I was up to throw, I could literally hear like the voices of my friends and teammates in the stand supporting me, and it really helped boost me on.
We were able to do this because we have the best assistant coaches in the country, the best captains in the country, and we have the best freshman walk-ons in the country.
I feel so honored to be a part of this team. This is the first time we've ever went undefeated in a season.
I mean, those games, they go back and forth. They can go either way, anytime, any day, year to year,
I'm a bit speechless, to be honest. This one's for the whole team, and so I'm really happy I could win this today.
No one has ever said, you can't do it. Everyone in my corner has been like, that's amazing. We think you can do it. We want to help you make it happen. And that's why I'm doing this, those kind of relationships are really what I'm in it for. So I'm so grateful.
The whistle goes, and Harvard celebrates a 7th national championship.
And to take a dip into the Charles for the Harvard Crimson, your 2024 ICSA Open Fleet Racing National Champs. And that must feel amazing for the Harvard Crimson.
Your 2024 champion at the IRA, Harvard.
Can anyone catch Maya Ramsden?
No, not going to happen. Maya Ramsden is going to successfully defend.
That is her 3rd NCAA title in the last year. She is the last to go back-to-back since Mississippi State's Tiffany McWilliams in 2003 and 2004.
has more history than any in the United States and has pulled off a piece of basketball history.
It's an absolute commitment to gender equity, providing opportunities for our female students to compete at the highest level.
3 championships in a row.
We couldn't have done what we did as a team or individually without each other.
Half. 1 in 2. 2 in 4. Half of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So let's retire inequality. Let's step forward together and let's rise together because dignity, security, retirement is for all.
At Team Impact, we pair kids who've been sidelined by serious illness and disability with college teams from across the country.
What's up, big man? You good?
It's more than a single-day meet and greet or photo opportunity. Our program places kids on a multi-year journey, becoming true members of a collegiate athletics team.
We are Penn State.
From signing day to game day,
I can't describe it. It feels amazing.
Team Impact. All in, all together.
Great seats at a great price. Get them safer, simpler, and smarter with Ticket Smarter. A proud partner to the biggest names in live sports and events, including ESPN events and iHeartRadio. Ticket Smarter has seats for over 125,000 live events and 48 million tickets for sale. All backed with the Ticket Smarter 100% ticket guarantee. Thinking about your next great live event? Think smarter. Think Ticket Smarter. Get your tickets your way, guaranteed at ticketsmarter.com.
These Bulldogs are the top dogs. Auburn, an overtime winner. Crimson into the round of 32. National NCAA Women's Rugby Championship in the Big Green of Dartmouth. That will do it. The Brown Bears and the Lions Red Rocks. And Cornell will play a championship Monday.
Half. 1 in 2. 2 in 4. Half of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So let's retire inequality. Let's step forward together and let's rise together because dignity, security, retirement is for all.
Great seats at a great price. Get them safer, simpler, and smarter with Ticket Smarter. A proud partner to the biggest names in live sports and events, including ESPN events and iHeartRadio. Ticket Smarter has seats for over 125,000 live events and 48 million tickets for sale. All backed with the Ticket Smarter 100% ticket guarantee. Thinking about your next great live event? Think smarter. Think Ticket Smarter. Get your tickets your way, guaranteed at ticketsmarter.com.
45 minutes into game number 1 of Harvard's season, and the Crimson have a 1-0 lead over the Thundering Herd of Marshall. As we welcome you back on a beautiful night at Jordan Field in Cambridge. Alongside George Avenant, I'm Alex Vespoli. And George, that first half for the Crimson, they shook off a little bit of rust. They got a goal. You'd have to think they're pretty happy in that dugout.
Yes, Alex, it went about as we expected, getting up the nerves, first game of the season, new players into the lineup. We saw one of those players, Sarah Lloyd, get her first assist of her career. And I think Coach Chris Handlin will be happy with the way things went.
So let's take a look at some of the key plays in that first 45 minutes. And both teams did have chances early on. Harvard had the initial chances, Jade Rose with a beautiful crosser for Josephine Hasbo, but Alexis Wagmuth up to the task. And meanwhile, Marshall did, off a couple of free kicks, did have a chance to get one in the back of the net first.
Great punch here from Rhiannon Storr. Only real test she's had this game, but playing her first game of the season, always nice to get that first save.
Crimson were able to get on the scoreboard a little bit later after a punch out by Wagmuth. It was set up by the freshman. You mentioned Sarah Lloyd taking it along the goal line, weaves it through. Josephine Hasbo, the one-touch score, and that is where we stand, 1-0. That goal scored in the 28th minute, and in that first half, Harvard, the dominant statistic in terms of the shots.
Yes, 11-2 on shots for Harvard. Really, as we got into the midway point of the half, we saw so many times where they would get 2-3 shots off in a single possession. Chris Hamlin must love the way they're playing on the offense, the way they are pressuring Marshall, and they will want to add to that as we get into the second half.
Josephine Hasbo and Jade Rose with big fans here as they've got their home crowd behind them, and they'll have to really soak it in because there won't be many opportunities to play in front of the home crowd, especially over the first half of the season. They will play 3 games on the road before coming back to face Pepperdine, and then it's 4 more on the road before their first Ivy League home game on October 5th. Crimson will start with possession here in the second half, and we're so glad to have you along as the sun descends toward the horizon. A beautiful Monday night. Certainly much better weather-wise than the forecast had indicated. And teams have taken advantage and really put forth a great effort as Erin Gordon will try and play it on through to Anna Rayhill. Starters back out there for both sides. Now, if you're on the Marshall side, what are you looking to change from that first 45? There were a couple of moments, but they pretty much evaporated over the last 30 minutes of that first half.
For Marshall, we saw a lot of good possession for them, but it all happened in their defensive third. What you're going to want to do is push that possession further up the field because that is the only way you're going to create chances.
And Harvard quickly will have another opportunity on a corner as Irina Hethensdottir Gonzalez trots to the far side to take the 5th Harvard corner kick of the evening.
And we've seen Harvard line up like this for all their corner kicks. They have 3 players on the edge of the box who just run in, and that just creates chaos.
They are now dispersing as Rayhill first to touch it. Here's Golan, and it's swept away. Back onto the foot here of Rayhill, and she sends it wide of the net. The Harvard's always had pretty creative corner setups, but oftentimes the beginning of the season, teams are a little bit more vanilla just because they haven't had as many game opportunities to execute. One thing that you noted early on from Marshall, and especially after Harvard scored the goal in the first half, is that they showed great poise and patience despite trailing here on the road. They have not looked like a team that is made up of a bunch of newcomers. They look like they've got a little bit more season than you might expect.
And credit to Coach Simos for that. That is something that you instill in the team in preseason. Let them know that when you get into this college soccer season, there are so many scenarios you're going to find yourself in. You look at them in the game against Dartmouth going down after just over 90 seconds. So they've been in this position before, and they need to make sure that they don't get phased.
Marshall, first foray into the Harvard defensive third. A chance as that's fed on through and then swept away. It was Hunter who got her foot on it and got it out of the area.
And more of that is exactly what is needed from Marshall. They're getting their players up the field and putting crosses into the box. That one was cleared out. but the more chances you have to put the Harvard defenders on their back leg, the more you can get that little angle you can have for a little shot on target.
Those Madison Towns who really set that opportunity up for the Thundering Herd. Towns from Aldie, Virginia. She's a junior, only played in 4 games last year, so she's been champing at the bit to get out there. She's now started all 3 games this season here for the Herd. Harvard gets another corner kick. Didn't get an official shot on their last corner attempt, and Ethan's daughter Gonzalez will once again head over to take it here for the Crimson.
So many set-piece opportunities for Harvard. They've come close on a couple. Expect one of these to threaten the goal.
And a little bit of a false start there. Hethan's daughter Gonzalez will play it out to Hasbo. That's always a good option as she chips in. Header chance. It's knocked away. It was Lloyd on the doorstep. Harvard's freshman nearly made it 2-0. Still scrambling. Rose plays it out. Hasbo with a left foot, and it just misses the corner.
And in the first half, we saw Lloyd to Hasbo. This time it was Hasbo to Lloyd. And it was a short corner initially. Comes out to Hasbo and great service. And Lloyd in the perfect position for it. Gets the contact needed. And Marshall's lucky there. The post comes to their save.
So Alexis Wogmuth can catch her breath as she'll look to clear this out. And it looks like Sarah Lloyd will have to come out because of a bloody nose, it appears. Not sure when it happened on that sequence, but she'll get looked at, and then Harvard will look to bring in Audrey Francois to substitute for her.
If I had to guess, it was probably off that header. Sometimes you go for it and it comes off your shoulder or off your face, but
hits the wrong spot.
Yeah, I'm sure if that would end the goal, she wouldn't have minded.
Yeah. It's a little bit more painful or when you don't get that tally, but it's already been a great night for Lloyd. So Francois in her place. Wogmuth, who Rafa Samos says he thinks that she can go pro after her college playing career is over. Just the way that she approaches things, it's already like a pro, the way she takes care of her body, the way she makes sure that she is ready for absolutely everything. She brings a professional mindset to the game, and the 5'7" junior from Hickory, North Carolina, certainly a big reason why Marshall figures to surprise some people in the Sun Belt this season.
And having a player like that in goal is so key. Goalkeepers are the backbone of the team. They're the ones who see everything. They're the last line of defense. So having a goalkeeper that you can trust in situations, especially in a team with 19 new players, is crucial. And expect her to be busy and key for Marshall throughout the entire season.
And they can sand off a lot of rough spots too, right? Things that maybe aren't fully buttoned up, they can cover for some of those things. This is last touched by Hunter, so or rather Rose. Harvard putting that pressure on. We saw Marshall trying to get Harvard to press in that first half to maybe find something to counter off of. And Harvard's just applying the pressure here, but not in a way that's putting them at risk to any sort of counterattack. Former goalkeeper Chris Hamblin always seems to have a stout defensive unit. Here's Francois. She gets taken down. No whistle. Excellent defensive work again by Towns. And Harvard will get a throw. Rose on the far side. In toward Rayhill. The spinorama. Rayhill going against multiple Marshall defenders. Towns gets in her way, muddies things up. And Francois attacking. Was she the last to touch it? She was not. And a mistake made by the Herd there. Instead, thinking it was going to be a goal kick, becomes another Harvard corner.
And Harvard's so good on that read press. When they give the ball up in the attacking third, they don't let off. They stand the attack. They try and win it back. And that's why we've seen so many set piece opportunities for them because they're staying on that offense.
Can you keep another penny, please? The ball girl. Yeah, thank you.
Waiting to trigger in another corner kick. Harvard's last one was nearly into the back of the net. Booming strike, looking for Francois, goes and hits the deck, and Marshall stands firm.
Once again for Harvard, such great set piece delivery. Too many times we see the ball hit the first player or not a dangerous one into the box, but it seems like every single chance Harvard has off a corner kick leads to some sort of scramble in the box. And Marshall needs to let off on letting all these corners because sooner or later, one of them will end up in the back of the net.
They need to try and get on this end of the pitch with a little bit more regularity. Whistle against the Crimson, and Marshall will get an opportunity to drive a bit deeper.
You didn't call it right away. You waited.
Harvard coach is not happy with the call from Sam Khalid.
Aaron, get in. You don't need to be there now. Come on.
And now Liam Mish will take it. Mish from Germany, playing in her first college season. Well, that was 5'2", Josephine Hasbo, who got her head on it, leads the break here for Harvard. August Hunter in a foot race with Towns. Hunter dispossessed. What a play again by Towns, who's been impressive on that back line for Marshall.
And we saw a switch here for Marshall in the second half. In the first half, it was Towns on the right side and Fernanda Dantas on the left side. But they've made that switch here in the second half, and Towns has really had her way, especially with the threat of Jade Rose down the right side.
Crimson have had a hard time solving Towns. Leshnik cleared out. And now they'll look to Spring Porter. Katie Porter, but it was too much. Amy Koenig got to it for the Crimson. By the way, Rhiannon Stewart has been in net all day, making her second career start, third career appearance. Shots have been heavily tilted in Harvard's direction as we'll get a substitution for Marshall. Brooklyn McComas will come on for the first time. Freshman is making her third college appearance. Monroe, Ohio native. Played her club soccer for Cincinnati United Premier. Be a throw for the Herd. Marshall, we talked about all the international students on the team. 17 international players out of the 29 on the roster. They've got 17 players from 12 different countries. It's not like they have, 10 Canadians on the team and then a smattering elsewhere. It is a real mix. They've got 3 different continents outside of North America represented. They've got 3 from Brazil, 2 from England, 2 from Portugal, 2 from Sweden, and then 1 each from Cameroon, Canada, France, Germany, Japan, Northern Ireland, Norway, and Spain. What a combination. What a mosaic that Rafa Samoas, the Brazilian head coach, has put together in Huntington, West Virginia.
And that's a beautiful thing about college soccer. So many programs get players from international markets, and you kind of bring them into the melting pot of a locker room. And it's incredible to be in because you learn about different people from different cultures, and you get friends from all over the country. I had teammates from Iceland, Belgium, Sierra Leone, who are some of my best friends to this day. And it's just truly such an incredible experience.
And Coach Samoa said that it's not necessarily that he is only going to look at the international route, as Harvard looks to put one on, and that goes wide. So we'll get a substitution. Sarah Lloyd will come back on. So we'll get another look at that last opportunity for the Crimson. But he said, he took over so late after the coaching change that a lot of the Americans, the American players who are good that fit his system, they'd already committed, they'd already been recruited. So he had to go the international route just to get the players that fit his system. He says it doesn't really matter where you're from. Here's Leshnik looking to turn it around. Leshnik back heeling it. And there's a shot to save made by Wagmuth. Harvard buzzing, Anna Rahill all over that. And the Crimson turning nothing into something there.
And Harvard, once again, so dynamic on that repress. Marshall wants to play out of the back. Marshall wants to play the right way, but it's so tough to break Harvard when they are pressing their defenders this way. What you need to see from Marshall is next couple minutes, maybe hit a couple longer into the channels. It's probably not what they want to do style-wise, but sooner or later, one of these chances is going to get in the back of the net for Harvard.
Crimson will get a throw here deep into the end of the field that Marshall's defending. Finish out of the international players. It's going to take a couple of years before Rafa Samoas can get some of those commits from the United States into his program, just because of the way the college commitment process works for Americans. So for the time being, he's going to go international, and says that they try and communicate in English as much as possible. But, it's really a great thing. You talk about the friendships that you made with players from all over the world. And he says, really respecting the cultural differences and understanding that something that might be considered rude in one person's culture might not be in somebody else's. So having a little bit of grace there is part of the learning experience and, really is part of the college experience.
And the thing as well of Marshall is their men's team. We talked about them earlier and how Coach Grassi is a mentor for Coach Samoas, and their men's team is very international. When they won the national championship in 2021, they had a singular American player in their starting lineup. So he knows how to navigate this through his mentor, and it's a beautiful thing to see on the field.
And for Harvard, they certainly have a lot of international players as well. There are more internationals than Americans on the Crimson squad. Not quite as many countries represented, 5 countries versus 12, but that goes to show you the Harvard student body in general is, of course, always going to attract the best and the brightest from all over the world. And Marshall doing the same from Huntington, West Virginia. Crimson are putting pressure on the Herd here, looking for their first win of the season in their 3rd game. Harvard trying to start off the year 1-0. They have been a dominant team here at Jordan Field. Really going back to 2018, they have been a tough nut to crack for anybody. Only lost 8 games at home since 2018, with 32 wins and 2 draws. Nicola Golan getting spun around, puts one on. Wagmuth makes the save. Boy, Golan was looking for an outlet and then determined my best course is go for goal.
And confident save there from Wagmuth. Holds onto the ball, doesn't parry it away. It's a hard shot, probably not as much in the corner as she would have wanted it. But Harvard amping up the pressure once again.
Nicola Golan has lived up to her surname each of the last 2 years with a goal. Looking for her 3rd career marker. A tie up at midfield, and Harvard will look to get right back to it. Harvard's been very quick and intentional when they've been getting into the action. It's a little bit different than we've seen the way Marshall sometimes has played it very, very slowly in terms of getting the ball up the pitch. Harvard's played that indirect style, but they've done it pretty quickly.
And that starts from the back from Harvard. We've seen the center back, Hunter, step into the offense and win balls and immediately go flying down the wing. And that's something you don't usually see from your defenders. So that shows you that coach wants their players to do that. They want them to get into the attack and get these chances going.
Rose was looking to chase this one down, and it's guided into touch. As a man who played the position at Division I, how much fun was it for you to be able to jump into the offense every now and then and play a role there?
It was incredible, and honestly, about half my time in college, I actually did play in the offense and made my first ever college soccer start here at Jordan Field at the striker position. So it's great being back and great to see the game today.
A little chip looking for Lloyd, and she sends it wide. Boy, what a debut tonight for Sarah Lloyd. Has been involved in so many dangerous chances, this time set up by the Olympian.
And you see Rose getting up and down that right side. Good cross into the box, and Lloyd gets contact on it. Probably not as good as she would have wanted, but Harvard once again really making a name for themselves in the second half.
Lloyd had to come out because of a bloody nose a little bit earlier in the half. Got the attention she needed and came back onto the pitch. It is a spectacular sunset here. Beautiful night on the banks of the Charles River. A wonderful setting, and this is back-to-back beautiful places to play for the Thundering Herd. Rafa Samos was so complimentary of the pitch up at Dartmouth. Said it was one of the most perfect grass surfaces that he's had a team play on as a coach, and really loved the experience that they had up in Hanover and all the hospitality that they've been given by the folks at Harvard as well. Here comes Hethen's daughter, Gonzalez. Sends it, Golan. Stops it, Golan takes the shot, goes wide. Lloyd a little too far from that back post to punch it in. Harvard once again is making things very stressful for that back line.
And Harvard dynamic on the counterattack once again. It started with Rose to Heaven's daughter Gonzalez, and the cross here off the outside of the boot couldn't quite get an attacker at the end of it.
Got substitutions coming on for both sides here, rather just Harvard. Katie Porter was lingering at the sideline, looking like she was coming in, but she was already into the game. Lecky has to retreat. And Towns, Harvard, applying that press in a very smart way and really not making life easy for Marshall trying to advance the ball up the pitch.
And the thing I'll credit Marshall with and Coach Samos is that they are sticking to their game plan. They're still sticking to the possession style of play, that slow buildup that I'm sure they've been working on for preseason. Sometimes you see teams work on something the entire time preseason goes on, first couple games. Then as soon as things start to get tough, they completely switch it up. But Coach is really buckling down on what they've learned and wants the result to come with it.
Porter was going to take the throw. Brooklyn McComas will take it instead. Just hasn't been much possession on this side of the pitch at all. And Rhiannon Stewart has had virtually nothing to do in this second half, nearly 20 minutes into it. See if things can change in Marshall's favor. They've been able to keep it a 1-0 deficit despite the statistics dramatically favoring Harvard in shots. It's 18-2 right now for Harvard shots, yet the score remains just 1-0, so you're theoretically one shot away from getting this back to even.
And that's the toughest thing for a goalkeeper when you don't have a lot of action. You can stand cold for literally 89 minutes in the game, but then when that one shot comes at your goal, you have to be ready for it.
Substitution for the Crimson, Lauren Muniz will come on, make her college debut. Another Colorado native. She's from Broomfield, Colorado. And so she will come on. Won a Girls Academy Champions Cup with the Colorado Rush a couple of years ago. Anna Rayhill comes out. Now, unlike the men's game where they changed the rule of substitutions, they did not change the substitutions rule in the women's game in Division I. The men, once you substitute out in the second half, you cannot come back in. But the women, you can still have as many re-entries as you want. They did change the timing issues in the last 15 minutes of a match. A team that's leading with 15 minutes to go, if they substitute, the clock gets stopped to avoid a team just loading up on subs to milk as much time as possible. Nearing 25 minutes to go. Goal in the 28th minute by Josephine Hasbo, the only tally tonight. It was assisted by Sarah Lloyd. Marshall looking to build. And once again, these buildups happen and nobody is where that through ball is. And so they just kind of fizzle out.
Yeah, and Alex, if you're Harvard, you will want a goal here because sooner or later, Marshall is going to have a chance. And a one-goal lead is such a dangerous one to have, especially when you've had the possession and you've had the shots in your favor.
Centering ball, Smith there. And this is played off the arm of Leshnik. That was really smartly done by Leah Mish. And so a free kick coming from outside the area And this will be as good of an opportunity that Marshall has had in the second half to try and put something on Rhiannon Stewart.
And I expect Bailey Fisher to be on this. She had a free kick against Dartmouth that hit off the crossbar. Like we mentioned pregame, she's the danger player on this team. Look for her to get this shot on target.
Mish and Fisher lining up over the ball.
Follow up all the way. Second balls.
There's a liner caught on one hop. Tricky little bounce for Stewart to judge and then hold on to straight on to goal. And that is the first shot on goal tonight, the first save made by Stewart.
And Stewart will be happy to have that. That gets the confidence going for her. Little skip on the ball here, but straight to Stewart. An easy save for the goalkeeper.
It was Louisa Travasas who took the shot. Travasas missed all of last year because of injury, but has made her return, has started every game this year. She's one of the captains. Really inspirational figure. Not just what she does on the pitch. Here's Golan. Down the flank. Nicola Golan looks to center it to Hethensdottir Gonzalez. Big hit, but denied. Excellent defensive work by Marshall, stepping up, denying a shot attempt by Hethensdottir Gonzalez, who's looking for her first career goal. Here's a deflection back toward Wagmuth, and she gobbles it up like a hungry hippo. Needed to as well. Unlucky deflection there for Marshall. And the Thundering Herd have got to figure out a way to get the luck to turn in their favor. All for you, babe. All for you. There's a win by Gordon. On a blatant pull down there by Kaisa Ekstrom, one of the Marshall captains, and that's enough for a booking for the former Florida Tech Panther.
And that was good play there from Erin Gordon. We haven't talked much about her so far, but this is a first-year player in her first college soccer game in the back line, which is never an easy thing to do. And here we see her winning the ball and immediately playing that hard entry ball into the striker.
It was Lauren Muniz who took the punishment.
Sorry, thank you.
August Hunter. Didn't quite get all of it. Deflected back. There's Hethensdottir Gonzalez. It's wide. More substitutions coming on. Alice Johansson, the freshman from Sweden, will come on for the Thundering Herd. She will come in for Katie Porter, and for Harvard, Anya van den Einde, checking back into the game for Leshnik. Good minutes for Leshnik there, playing at the top of the box. Even though Harvard doesn't have the same cast of characters they had last year, they still feel really good about their depth and some of the younger pieces. And we've seen some of them here tonight as Koenig getting tugged out. And anything to these plays by Marshall where they're grabbing a little bit too much jersey? Is that a sign of fatigue or desperation?
I think it's Marshall showing that they're not backing down from this game. They want to stay in it. They want to stay aggressive. Harvard, once again, has shown to be so good on the press. That's really limiting how Marshall wants to play the game. So Marshall here trying to stay aggressive, trying to let Harvard know that they're not going to go down easily in this game.
Looks like van den Einde shifting into more of a defensive role than she was playing earlier. Golan centers, and it's deflected wide. A chance for Lauren Muniz on the doorstep again, but just off on the touch. And Harvard has had that play out a few times tonight.
And Muniz into the game as a freshman, her first game. We've already seen her be involved multiple times. She looks like she has an eye for goal.
Larissa Osorio and Amelia Compston come in, and Angel Fowler as well. Osorio, sophomore from Belo Horizonte, Brazil. Fowler is a junior from Sutton, England. And Amelia from the state capital in Charleston, West Virginia.
And Marshall giving a break to two of their captains here, well earned. Still a lot of time on the clock, so expect to see them back into the game for the final push.
It's that strategy that can still exist in women's college soccer, but not in men's college soccer, at least in Division I. It can in the other divisions.
And it's important to note for Marshall as well, now that you have some of those leaders off the field, they need to make sure that this doesn't change the way they play. Because if you go down that second goal, that makes things a whole of a lot harder. So the players in the game who haven't been in the match yet need to get up to speed as fast as possible.
Yeah, this is a dangerous time, especially with so many attacking pieces still out there for the Crimson. Gordon is trying to play it back toward Van den Einde, and this sets up an opportunity for McComas. McComas sends one softly into the hands of awaiting Rhiannon Stewart. You know, Rhiannon Stewart, inexperienced at the college level, but Chris Hamblin made a great point to us. She and also another goalie who figures to play for the Harvard Crimson this year, Maya Poulsen, very experienced on the international stage. Stewart, part of the U18, U19 England national team, played at pretty high levels in English soccer prior to coming to Harvard. So while she doesn't have a lot of, skins on the wall from a college perspective, she is certainly somebody who's played in big-time games and is a trusted person back there between the pipes.
And for a goalkeeper, you always want to be the starter. You always want to get a run of games. She's seen it for a couple years now behind Anna Karpenko, and she has her time to shine, and she'll hope to get a clean sheet here in her first game.
Sarah Lloyd, that was Irina Hettensdottir Gonzalez. Took a bit of a knock. You can hear Chris Hamblin, the ninth-year head man out of Boston College, telling his team not to force things. It's a dangerous point in the game, as you've alluded to. A goal would make a huge difference for either side, obviously. Harvard could feel like they are putting this one away with another goal. And for Marshall, they'd feel like, so many things have not gone in our direction. We are still just a goal away from an excellent result here on the road. Golan. Again, taking it from the wide side, trying to find a crossing lane. Golan sends it in front of the net. A lot of bodies in front. Marshall sweeping it away once again. They have not had a lot of possession on Harvard's side of the pitch, but they have done just enough here in the second half to thwart that second Harvard goal.
And I've loved what I've seen from Golan today down this left side in the second half. She loves to take on players, loves to attack. Reminds me a little bit of Tobin Heath back in the U.S. Women's National Team days. Just always a threat when she gets the ball and looking to make something happen.
Subs coming back on. Riley McKinney will come into the game for the Thundering Herd. And Anna Rahill checks back in. She'll relieve Lauren Muniz, who had that opportunity right near the post just a few minutes ago. Leah Mish will get a breather for the Thundering Herd. She's been out there for the majority of this game.
And something to look for as we go farther into this game is the adjustments on the field for Harvard as they figure out how to get the result. We've seen the defenders, Rose and Hunter, go up so much. We'll see if they continue to do that.
Rahill quickly back into the action, tried to cross it for Golan. Now Rose attracts two green and white striped kits. Lloyd taken away by Towns. Little push in the back, and that one easy to spot. Jade Rose, the guilty party.
Once again, great defensive work from Towns. As we noted, she moves to this left side as a left back in the second half. And we've seen most of Harvard's attacks come down their left side now that she's on the overside. And I'm sure that was a tactical switch at halftime, noticing that in the first half, a lot of the Harvard attack was coming down the right side from Lloyd and from Rose. But we see in the second half that's almost been completely taken away.
Little mistake by Angel Fowler out of Monroe College. That's Division III junior college in the Bronx. Another new player, one of 19 on the Thundering Herd this season under Rafa Simoes. Rafa Simoes, a native of Sao Paulo, Brazil, and he's got a couple of Brazilians, in fact, 3 on his team, including Luisa Travassos, who was named one of the most influential people in Brazil based on some social projects that she's done, donating sports equipment to folks living in poverty and favelas in different parts of Brazil, really organizing that effort and being a huge help to her community and a huge inspiration who's gotten a lot of not only national attention in Brazil, but international attention as well, and really indicative of the amazing person that she is and all that she's doing beyond the pitch to really make a name for herself and her cause, more importantly.
It's so great when you see student athletes really take care of what they do off the field. Sometimes it's so hard when you have trainings and everything else to just find the time to do other things. And it's so great to see that from Travasos.
No surprise that she's a captain and a leader on this team, a leader in her own community, and she hopes to lead the Thundering Herd back from a 1-0 deficit. Towns on the takeaway. Leads it forward. Marshall again with a promising chance. Here's a thumping attempt, and Stewart dives, knocks it down, and picks it up off the bobble.
And Fisher getting a look here. You see her get inside, open shot, and takes a little deflection, which does make it hard for Stewart. Little bobble at the end, but there were no incoming attackers from Marshall, so no harm, no foul there.
Bailey Fisher, you can see anywhere on the pitch, she is dangerous. Here's the number 7 for Harvard, Josephine Hasbo. She's dangerous anywhere on the pitch as well. Lloyd up the right flank, sends it on the ground, played toward the line, but not over it. Hasbo never stops, but played it into the shin protector of a Thundering Herd player. And Marshall snuffs that candle. Gordon. Nathan's daughter, Gonzalez, sliding it smartly. And again, Lloyd. She gets knocked down. Clean play. They play on.
That was Fisher getting back on the tackle, an attacking player, but key defensive contribution from her there.
Anya Van Den Einde. A little bit too much contact there for the sophomore. So it'll be a free kick as a result of this play.
Now we're getting down to the last 10 minutes here, about 12 minutes left. It'll be interesting to see what tactical changes Coach Simos makes for Harvard. Maybe added another player to the attack, possibly 3 in the back, move some players ahead. You're still in the game. You're only down a goal, and any moment, anything can happen.
Just the chances have been few and far between. Just one shot on goal. It did come in the last 15 minutes or so. Thundering Herd have been outshot as a team 20-4. Shots on goal, it's been a little bit closer. It's actually 5-2. There's a second shot on goal that Rhiannon Stewart just handled, but they counted as one.
And you hear Coach Simos on the sideline. The goalkeeper, Wogmuth, has the ball, and he's telling her to drive. He's telling her to keep going and get space to make the right pass.
Marshall trying to penetrate this back line for the Crimson. Van Den Einde worked it onto the boot of Koenig, and it's quickly out of harm's way. And here comes Harvard off to the races again with Sarah Lloyd. Lloyd has Rayhill off to her left. Centers it. Rayhill couldn't get that first touchdown. And great effort by Irina Hethensdottir Gonzalez. Really poking that ball from behind to make sure that Marshall didn't get anything going. You know, the Thundering Herd, whenever they pause for a moment, Harvard's right there to poke the ball away or do just enough to prevent any sort of quick counter.
We've seen it so many times from Harvard. They're quick on the counterattack, but they're even quicker to win the ball back. And that is what's making it so hard for Marshall. As soon as they get the ball, they have 1, 2, 3 Harvard players on them, getting those little pokes on the ball.
And say what you want about the shot distribution, which team has had more dangerous chances, but Thundering Herd have shown themselves to be a pretty resilient squad and shown a lot of poise, which makes you think that There's nobody thinking that this game is anywhere close to being over in that Harvard dugout. Under 10 minutes to go. All it takes is one magic moment. Nicely done by Koenig. Again, putting some molasses in that drive down the field by the Thundering Herd. Dangerous play back to Stewart, and Harvard escapes immediate consequences there in the negative.
Aaron!
Saw a player who's set to come on for Harvard. When she saw that sequence, the pass back to Stewart, put her hands on her head, I think saying, oh no, are we really doing that?
And those are the opportunities for Marshall where they have to press. When you see a goalkeeper get the ball like that, maybe a little bit uncomfortable on her off foot, that's when you need to get all your attackers on the ball trying to force those mistakes.
So it's a kick, not a throw here for the Crimson.
Come this way. It's going to come in big. Second ball.
And August Hunter, the one to take it. Goes right onto the noggin of McComas, Brooklyn McComas, but here comes Hasbo.
So well done from Hasbo there. So composed to bring it down. Then the little touch around the corner.
She plays with pace. Hethen's daughter Gonzalez goes for goal, but overcooks that. She is buzzing for that first career goal, and we've got substitutions before the goal kick.
Hasbro been facilitating all game long, finding players, finding those chances, and Harvard will look to put a couple more shots on target as we end up in the last 8 minutes of this game.
Clock stops on the Harvard substitution. That's a new rule in Division I women's soccer this year. The leading team, when they substitute in the final 15 minutes, or if the score is tied in the final 15 minutes, the clock stops to prevent any unnecessary bleeding of the clock as a strategy. Audrey Francois coming on for the Crimson, a couple of substitutions as well as Kaisa Ekstrom came on for the Thundering Herd. Darkness settling in on a late summer evening. Cambridge, Massachusetts. Van den Einde helping slow that pass down. Headed back in the direction of Hasbo. Van den Einde on to Golan. This has been the spot she's been working from this half. Golan on the ground was looking to get it toward Rahill. Gordon. Battle possession to Marshall. Both squads wanted it.
The time taken here for Marshall will be interesting seeing once again what do they do. They're still playing that possession style of play, but sooner or later they're going to need to start putting balls into dangerous areas and trying to force mistakes from the Harvard back line.
Yeah, that tactical change that we have been expecting, it just, the clock hasn't gotten to that point where Rafa Samoas has pushed that button yet.
I think once again, though, it also shows the trust he has in his team and the trust he has in his system. Some of the best teams in the world, you see them so composed in the dying minutes of the game when you expect them to go for that Hail Mary ball. Then all of a sudden, it's 1-2 passes to unlock the defense, and they get that killer goal in the end.
Rafa Samoas in his first year as the head coach with Marshall, and a really interesting road after winning a Division II national championship with Chris Grassi at the University of Charleston. He came to Marshall as an unpaid volunteer assistant with the men's team, and then left to become a women's assistant at both Ohio University, and then he went to Nova Southeastern in Fort Lauderdale. He was there, and at that point, he thought that that's where he was going to stay for a while until he got a call from his old mentor, Chris Grassi, who said, you know what, I can take you on as a full-time assistant now back up at Marshall. Are you interested? He said, you know, when you get that call from Coach Grassi, you have to take it, and you have to take that opportunity. And while he was back at Marshall, he saw the opportunities present in the women's program, and he admitted to us that he enjoys coaching the women more than he coaches the men because he feels like the women listen a little bit more than men. No offense to you, George, but he felt like it was easier for his message to break through. As here's Francois sliding one dangerously across, but didn't have the angle Golan chases it down to keep this chance alive for the Crimson. Golan in a one-on-one. Angles it out toward Gordon. Back up to the top of the 18. Comes back out. He presented his vision, and it was accepted. And, boy, he's excited not only to stay at Marshall, where he feels like they have the infrastructure, they have the support, but he also feels like, you know, the synergy between the men's and the women's programs are only going to help both programs, and he's got his mentor one door down. Got an injury. A Marshall player is down. So while they attend to the injured player, we'll try and tell you who that is. Show you again, we told you Harvard picked to finish atop the Ivy League in the preseason poll. Once again, Brown figures to be a big factor. Princeton as well. Columbia was that fourth team that made it into the Ivy League, made it to the NCAA tournament last year after going down against Harvard in the Ivy League tournament. But certainly Harvard, after playing second fiddle to Brown in the regular season the last few years, they are the favorite.
And the Ivy League tournament adds such an interesting wrinkle to the Ivy League. We hadn't had that in past years and saw it in 2023. The team that wins the regular season gets hosting advantages, but it's all to play for once the tournament comes.
Meanwhile, the preseason poll for the Sun Belt Conference, which is a much bigger conference, 14 teams. This is 1 through 8. Old Dominion, James Madison, very, very close in terms of the voting pecking order. And then as we take a look at the bottom part of the league, you'll see Marshall, even though they're picked to finish 13th out of a 14-team conference, you'll see as we show you the second half of the conference. Look at that, a first-place vote that allows them to stay above Troy in those preseason poll standings, which really aren't worth the paper they're printed on if somebody prints them, but hey, they're a good discussion point, right?
And clearly that's someone that has a lot of faith in Coach Simos and in Marshall. But the thing about preseason polls is that they're preseason polls, and it doesn't mean anything once you get on the field and you show themselves who you are. So I'm sure once the Sun Belt Conference gets going, Marshall's going to show teams they deserve to be higher than 13th place.
It was Larissa Osorio who was down, looked like a foot injury, and as you can see, she gave a thumbs up to the Crimson bench and is able to walk off under her own power. So that's terrific news for Osorio, who came over from an NAIA school, Central Methodist University. That's in Fayette, Missouri. She was first-team all-conference player in their conference. Harvard calling for a handball, and their wish was granted by Sam Mohaled. Clock is winding toward 5 minutes left. Marshall getting set to bring on a couple of substitutions. Carolina Falcao and also Katie Porter getting set to come back on. So maybe this is the point where Rafa Samoas is trying to get a little bit more of an offensive punch into the contest.
And changes coming from Marshall, but one change for Harvard. Jade Rose has moved to center back, and Koenig is at right back now. Maybe that's Harvard trying to shore up the inside. Rose has a lot of pace. Maybe coach expects a lot of long balls in behind and wants that pace in the back line. But interesting switch when you have players playing in one position for 85 minutes, and then last 5 minutes they change it up.
And no doubt a player of Rose's talent and her resume can handle that position change. And you figure probably not going to see her as involved offensively over the last 5 minutes as she was earlier in the game, right?
Absolutely not. And as a coach, if you see Rose or Hunter making those runs that they've made earlier in the game, you'll probably be telling them, what are you doing? Get back. But we'll see what happens here.
Now we will get those substitutions, and the clock does not stop on the trailing team's substitutions, so we'll tick under 4 minutes here before we get this ball back into play. Harvard was going for the corner flags and trying to burn time the old-fashioned way. But that clock becoming a big issue here for Marshall as they try to avoid a winless two-step here in New England. Their first 2 games against the Ivy League, they fell 1-0 at Dartmouth. And now a foul against Harvard will give a free kick back over here to the Herd.
Marshall a chance to get this ball up the field into the box.
They briefly stop the clock there. The stalling tactic there from the Crimson. Crimson have just been able to slam the door shut. They are not letting any air get through and fan the flame of a Marshall chance. Rahill pushed off her spot.
And that is fantastic defending from Ekstrom, getting the advantage on her attacker, getting a little shoulder on the ball, and maintaining possession, which is the most important thing for her to do.
Captain in her first year with the program, transferring up from Florida Tech. She was an all-region player, all-conference player a couple of years in a row, showing off her quality. 2.5 minutes to go.
And we've seen Marshall play these short, but they need to get this into the box. Little one here. Now can you redirect it towards the corner?
A service up toward Porter. And chased into touch. A throw here for Marshall. Harvard trying to stay in position.
Double Nicola. Let it go.
And the Crimson will let that go. A miss on the throw. And Harvard a chance to bleed another 15, 20 seconds or so on the goal kick. You know, Chris Hamblin had told us before this game, we are never in our first game of the season off and running without any sort of issues. Again, this is Harvard's first game of the season, Marshall's third game, and it's something that Ivy League teams, it's something they have to deal with starting later than all the other Division I conferences. Here's Francois. Can she earn herself a chance? Francois pushes and stymied by Wagmuth.
Absolutely crucial save there from Wagmuth. Francois gliding by defenders, gets the shot off, probably didn't get it in the corner as much as she wanted. And Wagmuth looks like she caught it between her knees, but they all count the save, a huge save, and Marshall with about a minute here to try and get a goal on the board.
Desperation time.
1 minute remaining in the second half.
Have not been able to sustain much possession on this end of the pitch in the entire second half. Harvard has outshot Marshall 22-4. The foul coming up here against Harvard. They will not stop the clock, so it continues to run with 40 seconds.
And Coach Simo's calling for this ball to go into the box from Kaiser Ekstrom.
Rahill getting in the way, slowing down that first drive. This is flicked back in the direction of Stewart, and she will just grab it last moment, under 30 seconds to play.
And the issue there is, if a player is in front of the ball like that and it hits him on the free kick, it's a yellow card for the player. But Ekstrom missed Rahill, therefore the ref couldn't call anything on that.
Final 10 seconds. Francois serves to the middle of the pitch. It's knocked out the head of Van Den Einde, and the Thundering Herd will run out of chances as Harvard continues its home dominance and starts 2024 with a 1-0 win. The first ever meeting between Harvard and Marshall. That was a nail-biter at the end, but for the Thundering Herd, same final score in their first 2 games against Ivy League opponents. We'll come back, we'll wrap things up, and show you the final stats as we return to Jordan Field on a winning night for the Harvard Crimson.
These Bulldogs are the top dogs. Harvard, an overtime winner, wins it into the round of 32. And Cornell will play on Championship Sunday.
Half. 1 and 2. 2 and 4. Half of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So let's retire inequality. Let's step forward together and let's rise together, because dignity, security, retirement is for all.
Great seats at a great price. Get them safer, simpler, and smarter with Ticket Smarter. A proud partner to the biggest names in live sports and events, including ESPN events and iHeartRadio. Ticket Smarter has seats for over 125,000 live events and 48 million tickets for sale. All backed with the Ticket Smarter 100% ticket guarantee. Thinking about your next great live event? Think smarter. Think Ticket Smarter. Get your tickets your way, guaranteed, at ticketsmarter.com.
The school with more history than any in the United States has pulled off a piece of basketball history.
It's an absolute commitment to gender equity, providing opportunities for our female students to compete at the highest level.
3 championships in a row.
We couldn't have done what we did as a team or individually without each other.
A winning night number 1 for the Harvard Crimson. They start the season with a 1-0 victory over the Thundering Herd of Marshall. As we welcome you back into the broadcast booth, and George, what is the feeling like after that first game of the season? You put it in the back pocket, and it's a dub.
I think for Harvard, like we said, they come in late, first game of the season against a team that's played a couple games, and you just want to get a result. And I'm sure they would have wanted to get a couple more goals on the board, but a win is a win, and you see how excited they are on the field.
Yeah, Chris Hamel and the coaching staff must have a little bit of anxiety soothed as a result of this. We'll take a look at the final statistics. We mentioned how Harvard really dominated from a shots perspective. That doesn't always tell the story of a game, but in this case, it probably is pretty appropriate as the shot total, Harvard 22-4. There just weren't many opportunities for the Herd to get that goal.
And not many opportunities on goal, but I think Coach Simos will be happy about how they still played their style of soccer for 90 minutes. You saw them getting the ball, possessing around the back line. He probably would have wanted a little bit more possession in the attacking third, but it's clear that this team is building an identity, and even against a top side like Harvard, they didn't break down.
Take a look at the road ahead here for the Thundering Herd. After a couple of games in New England, they will be back home on Sunday to take on Belmont. That's a 2 o'clock start before they're back on the road against one of Rafa Samoa's old employers. He will be at Ohio University to take on the Bobcats. They will be back home for conference play coming up against Georgia State. That will be on September 20th. So they are still a few weeks away from starting off their Sun Belt slate. Meanwhile, for Harvard, so we'll take a look at their schedule. The Crimson will be on the road for the next 3. They will have UMass, Northeastern, and Boston University. So a road trip, but all close games. Obviously, that last one, BU, you know Nickerson Field well, before they will be back home, and then a little bit more of a substantial road trip with that Ivy League opener at the bottom of the screen.
And always nice to play local teams. You see UMass, Northeastern, BU, all Massachusetts opponents on the schedule. Those are big games for them and great games to get their season going.
So Harvard got a goal from Josephine Hasbo in the 28th minute. It was set up by Sarah Lloyd, the freshman from Denver, Colorado, who nearly had a goal earlier in that first half, but it was Hasbo who put home the only goal of this game. Marshall got a strong defensive performance, and Alexis Wagmuth was good in goal. She was often tested as Harvard, a new-look group. Both of these squads with so many new faces in new positions. And in the end, it was a 1-0 victory for Harvard. So that'll do it for my broadcast partner, George Avenant. I'm Alex Vispoli saying so long from Jordan Field, with the final score was Harvard 1, Marshall 0. All games airing on the ESPN networks are streaming live and archived on the ESPN app. This has been a presentation of ESPN.